Do you remember when you were in high school and they said you need to learn a second language? Did you choose the right one? Find out on this episode of The Andy Eilers Show. As a personal and professional development coach, I find every single day that people tell me, Andy, I don't understand why I'm having such a difficult time communicating with people that I've known my whole life in some cases. They can't communicate with their kids. They can't communicate with their spouse or significant other. They can't communicate at work. And I don't mean that they can't have a discussion or a conversation. What I mean by that, of course, is that they don't feel like they're getting through to these people, or that the people are getting through to them, or that they're communicating in a way that flows and makes sense. So let me ask you a question. If you remember when you were in high school, and you were told at the beginning of your high school 4-year career that you needed to take a second language, in this case, maybe it was Spanish, maybe it was French, maybe it was Latin, who knows? And you took the second language only because you had to take a foreign language for 2 years in order to get your high school diploma. What if you had had a different option? What if instead of learning a language that you probably don't even speak today, or will probably never speak if you're in high school or in college today and looking at trying to get credits, what if you could learn a language that would actually help you communicate with anybody and everybody by understanding how people think, why they think a certain way, and how that's going to help you in your life no matter what you're doing? Which one would you choose? Would you take that one that you had to take, or the one that now is going to allow you to communicate better with no matter who you're talking to in almost every circumstance? I think it's obvious. We'd both choose the second one. So that's why Tom Hopkins and I worked together to write the book, Sales as a Second Language. You can see I've got a couple of projects that I've done with Tom in the past, and I want to tell you the story of how I met Tom and why he has had such an impact in my life, and why writing a book with him is going to have such an impact on your life. So I met Tom Hopkins for the first time in 2010, and I met him at what he used to call his 3-day boot camp. Now this was an event that 700 to 1,500 people attend on an annual basis. Why do they get together? To review or to learn for the first time Tom's sales techniques. When Tom wrote the book, How to Master the Art of Selling Anything, Mastering the Art of Selling Real Estate, those were 2 of the best-selling books ever that have been written on subjects of selling, and specifically real estate or anything. Now, when you think about selling, a lot of people have a negative connotation to that. Oh, I don't want to sell people things. I'm not a salesperson. I don't sell in my life. Let me ask you a question. The last time that you had to have your child do well in a particular class, or you had to get somebody to take action in some certain area of their life, you don't think that's a sale? I think it is. And Tom and I agreed on this. And when we wrote the book together, we had one thing in mind, and that was to help people better understand that selling really is communicating. The 2 work hand in hand. And every single time you're communicating, you're selling an idea to them, they're selling ideas to you, you're collaborating, you're communicating, you're getting closer by sharing those ideas. And it's leading to some sort of action, right? If you say, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know, where do you want to go? And you kept doing that all night, you'd never eat, would you? So instead you say, where would you like to go? Well, I'd love to go try this new Mexican place I heard about. Well, I was thinking about Italian. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Which one would we prefer? And you go about that communication by getting questions asked that are going to help lead you to a conclusion. So in the book we talk about, what is selling really? What is sales as a second language? It's communicating your ideas clearly, asking better questions, learning more about the person you're asking about before you start trying to talk about yourself, before you start imposing your will or presenting some idea that you think is important that may have nothing to do with that person. So back to Tom, when I went to his first boot camp, I learned very quickly that this is serious business. All the material that he had put together over 30+ years of being a sales trainer and a motivational trainer was now in this tiny little book that we had to learn word for word for word for word throughout that 3 days, and then compete with all the other people that were at the event. Well, the first year I did not do well. I was in the top 10% of the class, but that wasn't good enough for me. So I stood next to the stage after everybody had left, seeing everything cleared off the stage, and I made a choice. I said the next year I come back, which was 2011, I'm going to be number one. I'm going to know this material better than anybody else. And I studied and studied and studied that next year, and I was number one, which meant I walked away with a beautiful painting, beautiful, of a phoenix rising out of the ashes. And then next year, the final year that he did the 3-day boot camp, 2012, I made a second choice. Standing there in 2011, I said, I'm going to come back and repeat as champion, and I'm going to bring the people from my company and help them become champions at this too. And get them excited, get them involved, help them to be better in what they're doing, which was a sales career in this case. But the fact is, all of us are in sales. It doesn't matter what we do on a daily basis. We're selling our ideas, we're selling concepts, we're selling ourselves to people, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's a business colleague or a potential client, it doesn't matter. Anybody that you talk to, there's an exchange of ideas happening. There's a sale being made. So here's the question that I have for you. If you could go back again and choose whether to learn how to communicate no matter what platform it's in, no matter where you are in the world and whether it's business or personal life, or take a language that you're probably never going to speak again after you get out of your 2 years and get your diploma or your degree, which would you choose? So again, sales as a second language is exactly that. Sales is a language. It's not something where you wake up every day and say, I'm in sales. There's no such thing. You might have a title as a salesperson. You might have a title as a receptionist. The fact is, you're both selling the same company, the same products and the same services, just in a different capacity. And that's what helps people to understand better that sales as a second language is a way of communicating. So you picked a language. Can you think of any other language out there that you would rather learn than sales as a second language when you can communicate with anybody in the language you speak and the language they speak by using sales as a second language and the techniques you're going to learn by reading this book? If you like this episode and you want to learn how to speak sales as a second language, email me at the address below and let's get started.